Pakistanis believe that whenever America has called on them to assist in various efforts, Pakistan has been there. But they also wonder then, equally, why America doesn't do more to help resolve the Kashmir issue. Are there any reasons outside of the ones you just described?
Well, the Indians they just say no. They won't move on Kashmir. They believe that they're going to control what they have indefinitely, and there's no reason to formalize the agreement. I think it would help India if they normalized relations with Pakistan, including Kashmir. But I wouldn't put the Kashmir issue first and foremost. I'd work in other areas.
They have enough clout to just say no and...
Well, you can't force a country to negotiate if it doesn't want to negotiate. And India is important in its own right, as Pakistan is important in its own right. The American administrations have from the beginning urged the two countries to dialogue, but we've never put ourselves in a position where we want to force them to do something they're not willing to do, and that applies to Pakistan as well as India. The Pakistanis, I think, would be very unhappy with the kind of settlement that might revolve around the line of control. But this may take another 2 or 3 generations to get over before it's like the Israelis and the Palestinians. It may take another couple of generations before they realize that force will not change the borders, and therefore have to accept what exists presently as a de facto border between the two countries.
What do you say to those in Pakistan who believe that India is its gravest threat?
I think Pakistan is its own gravest threat, a country which can't feed itself, which can't educate its young people, which sends extremists across the borders that come back and create terrorist acts in Pakistan itself. I think Pakistanis have a lot to account for in terms of, Pakistan governments have a lot to account for in terms of their previous behavior. Indians are a problem, but since Pakistan has nuclear weapons, no Indian government is going to invade Pakistan, and vice versa. No Pakistan government is going to start a war with India. In a sense, the nuclear weapons of both countries they may not make peace possible, but they make war impossible. And any rational leader in either country will understand this very quickly. In fact, you could argue that all you have to do is kill, the Indians in 5 or 6 cities twice or 3 times for stability to achieve, and vice versa for the Indians. So I think that nuclear weapons offer an opportunity not to complain about nuclear weapons, as bad as they are, but to really move towards some kind of accommodation. I won't say a settlement of Kashmir, but at least an accommodation, which allows Pakistan to develop internally, get on with its own domestic problems.
Both countries have nuclear weapons. Why won't the U.S. enter into some kind of an agreement of the same kind of agreement they've entered into with India on civilian nuclear technology? What has Pakistan done wrong?
I've made the case that we should do that for a long time. As soon as I heard about the U.S.-India nuclear agreement, I said we should do the same for Pakistan. But that agreement should include a coming clean by Pakistan of what its past nuclear behavior has been. And as the Indian record has been very good in terms of proliferation. The Pakistan record is probably the worst in the world. So in a sense, part of the agreement should be that Pakistan will let us know exactly what they did in the past with the Libyans, with the Syrians, maybe with the Iranians and the Iraqis, and maybe with the North Koreans. In a sense, you have to wipe the slate clean to start all over again. But I would be in favor of it, in a sense. Pakistan does need more power. The Chinese are building a few reactors. I'd like to see the West help out as well.
Many people in Pakistan on this subject of proliferation have a divergent view from the one that you've just presented. They believe that the U.S., as the only country to have ever used weapons of mass destruction at the end of the Second World War, doesn't have the moral ground on which to tell other people not to proliferate. In fact, there is this view all over in Libya and Iran and Pakistan that the sooner they acquire nuclear weapons, the sooner they will be safer from attack.
Well, could you apply that to Karachi or to Sindh? That if the Sindhis got nuclear weapons, they'd be able to defend themselves from the Punjabis. There used to be a song in America, a folk song by Tom Lehrer, and the last line was, "Wait till Alabama gets the bomb." So proliferation is a process as it spreads down to different groups. Would you stop it at small ethnic groups, minority groups? Where would you stop it? Proliferation in the hand. I do think that Pakistan has behaved responsibly with its nuclear weapons, except to transfer the technology. And I don't think that a nuclear war between India and Pakistan is likely. So I agree with the theory of Kenneth Waltz and others that having nuclear weapons sort of freezes governments. But in fact, once they get out of control, once they get into the wrong hands, it could have a catastrophe. And I would also add that we were not the first country to use weapon of mass destruction. The bombing of Germany, the bombing of London were essentially weapons of mass destruction during World War II, and the use of gas and shelling in World War I killed many more people than were killed in World War II.
No, the Pakistan army is perceivably at odds with the civilian administration over a number of issues. This creates the perception that the Pakistan government is weak. To what extent do you think it's possible that the Pakistan army will back the civilian administration in a way it hasn't done in the past?
Yeah, I think in this case, given the attitude of outside powers, and since Pakistan is deeply indebted, needs the help of outside powers, I think the army will back up the civilian government. The problem is that the civilian government itself is weak, as you say. There's no there. There's an air gap between Zardari and the administration. One civilian government after another have been weakened by the military and also by civilian incompetence. And I would include his wife in that to some degree as well. So Pakistan is a country that's been so badly governed for so many years. You can't blame the military for looking at the civilians with some question and some doubt. On the other hand, I think the army's coming to a realization that they can't run Pakistan. They've tried it 3 or 4 times now. Each time they failed. So in a sense, it's in their interest to have a strong, competent civilian government, whether it's Zardari or whether it's Nawaz Sharif or whether it's Imran Khan or whoever it is, a government that has the support of the people. When Musharraf took over, I urged him to hold new elections. I said the only way in which the army can succeed in Pakistan is by having a competent, strong civilian government. And he was unwilling to do that. He felt that the military should run Pakistan indefinitely. But it turns out that the army can't run Pakistan. It can hardly protect itself now against terrorist attacks in army headquarters. So I think it's in the army's interest to allow the civilians to learn their craft, learn their trade, run for office, and be voted out by the Pakistani people, not be pushed out by a coup.
The U.S. government has a long history of giving aid to Pakistan. I believe it goes back to the time of Ayub Khan when the first military assistance started pouring in. So it's quite clear that the U.S. government has some influence or has had some impact on the army's success in Pakistan. Can the U.S. government translate that trust they have built and convince the army to follow a pattern that would reinforce democratic institutions?
Well, the answer is in the Kerry-Lugar bill, which has conditionality, and these are some of the conditions, that the army not intervene in politics, that the civilian government be allowed to govern. And I think this is in Pakistan's interest as well as our interest. And it's not simply that I believe in civilian government as a principle. In practice, it's more effective than the military. Military governments everywhere in the world have failed. The longer they're in, the bigger the failure there is, and that includes Pakistan as well.
Does the U.S. realize that they should not support tacitly or otherwise military coups in Pakistan in the future?
Well, you'd have to talk to Ambassador Blake or Holbrooke for that, but I think any congressman or senator would say this is not a good idea for Pakistan. The Kerry-Lugar bill has some waiver provisions built into it. So if there was a real crisis and the politicians were pushed out, the president or the secretary of state could waive those criteria. But I don't think they should. I think they should be pretty tough on that. Because it's in Pakistan's interest that the military not govern, the military allow civilian government to become more competent.
Lastly, Dr. Cohen, do you think that this civilian government in Pakistan will complete its term?
I can't tell you one way or the other, but I'm surprised that they've done reasonably well so far, given the expectations, given Zardari's lack of experience. They've struggled through, and I won't say they've succeeded, but they haven't failed yet. And I'd say let the Pakistani people decide with a vote, whether they should stay or go.
Dr. Cohen, thank you for your time. Nazreen, I hope you enjoyed the discussion with Dr. Stephen Cohen. Inshallah, see you next time. Khuda Hafiz.